Hey, it's Yad Man. In the summer of 2022, I rented a canal boat and toured the Netherlands via boat. I started at a little town called Wobregge, where the charter boat base was, went up to Amsterdam, and then to Haarlem, and then to Katwijk and Zee, then The Hague, Delft, and Gouda, and then back to the base. I spent about 2 weeks. I had originally chartered this cute little 24-foot boat 2 years ago, but then COVID happened and it was canceled. But these folks were quite honorable and held my deposit for me. I had to ask somebody about this. There was a refrigerator, so every morning I could have my milk and honey and instant coffee, but it made a pretty acceptable cup of coffee. This is civilized traveling. But you can see this boat was really slow. Took quite a bit of patience. You can see that over the course of the trip, I motored for 34 hours at an average speed of about 4 miles an hour. Covered 141 miles. And traveling by boat really agrees with me. Really, the biggest challenge of the trip was negotiating the locks and the bridges. I spent some time waiting for these, like here, except that oftentimes there was a place to tie up to. And the communications was always difficult. I would call on the phone because the boat didn't have a marine radio, and my language was so poor that we sometimes had a difficult time understanding each other. I didn't think the language would be a huge problem because most of the words look like kind of English when you see them, but they don't pronounce them in any way that sounds like how they look to me. So when I would talk to them on the phone for the name of a bridge, I would say the name of the bridge, they would repeat it back to me, and neither one of us understood what the other was saying. Fortunately, the lock and bridge tenders all spoke very good English. Language was never really a problem in the Netherlands, other than these place names. All of these locks and bridges had lights on them. So in this case, the yellow is for proceeding under the bridge without having a bridge lift, and the red is a stop. And then once they turn green, you can go through. Oh yeah, easy. Every bridge was labeled with the clearance height, and the clearance height on my boat was 23, which is 2.3 meters. I'm just sitting here having a snack of hummus and pita bread. Got an hour to kill, waiting for the lock to open. I bought a navigation app specifically for the canals, and it worked really well to plan the route and then to follow it live on navigation. I did a few runs, 2 on the beach and 1 on the canals. I also touched the North Sea. And I did a bunch of biking, but there's a lot to biking in the Netherlands. The level of infrastructure in the Netherlands for bicycles was pretty impressive. Cars had lanes, bikes had lanes, and pedestrians had lanes. And there were individual signals for each one. Even this park through the dunes had separate bicycle and walking paths. This was a whole network of bicycle paths through a residential area. Look at this, the bike path runs between the gas pumps and the convenience store. And look at this huge square. No guidance at all regarding bikes, pedestrians, cars, whatever. Look at this parking lot. I went to the grocery store one day, got there just before it was opening, and there were half again as many bikes in the parking lot as there were cars. I rented bikes in several of these towns, but it was never as easy as you would expect it to be. The marina where I parked the boat was completely full. Fortunately, I was staying an extra day with Kim and Carly, so didn't need to get out. 2 rows of red buoys. What's that about? These little windmills pump the water up out of the polders, or the farmland, into the canals so that they can run out to the sea. I don't know if it's this weird stagnant thing here where the canal runs out, or the ocean itself, the North Sea, but it kind of stinks here. I'm in Leiden and I rented this bicycle, but it's a 1-speed with coaster brakes, and man, it just doesn't feel right. Hoping I don't kill anybody with this stupid thing. I didn't spend the night here because it's such a public place, and right near these roads. There were no other boats here other than this whole long row of derelicts. And what was your name?
Stephanie.
Stephanie, it's nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
zomaar hier gekomen. Dit is een bijzondere kaasmarkt. Uniek in de wereld, want
This trip to the Netherlands turned out to be everything I'd hoped it would be. The travel and the canals on the boat, was the main reason I went, and it was quite a pleasure. Views were everything I hoped they would be, with tons of old school style windmills. The navigation wasn't terribly challenging, and I didn't spend too much time just motoring along. The boat was pleasant to live on, and I really liked it. I used all the transportation options except cars, and I feel like I really understand the transportation system. The bicycle system was awesome. The language was never a problem because their skills in English were typically so good. And although this wasn't as much of an exercise trip as it could have been, I still did 2 runs on the beach and a run along the canal banks and tons of bicycling. The food was great. I ate more cookies and sweet stuff in the Netherlands than I think I did the entire rest of the trip to Europe combined. I ate out quite a bit, and the dining out was always a pleasure. I fixed my own meals on the boat quite a lot, with all the shopping that implies. The buildings and the architecture were cool and interesting. I enjoyed how much of that there was to see. And the itinerary ended up being good. Delft was cool, even though I was kind of surprised by how small the porcelain ceramic thing was. Gouda was by far the best town for the food, shopping with tons of little shops and stores. Of course, I was there on Thursday, which was market day, so all the food stalls were open. I didn't like The Hague. The waterfront and the boating experience there were the worst of the whole trip, with really no good place to moor the boat. My favorite spot was, forgiving my pronunciation, Katwijk on Sea, which I went back to for a couple extra days. Due to the logistics of moving around, I had a couple of days where I couldn't really get too far, but I'd already seen the close by places, so I just hung out there for a couple of extra days. And Amsterdam was interesting, fun. I got to see that with my sister and my niece there. Over the course of the trip, I had a couple of different tours of the old traditional windmills, which were much more entertaining and educational than anticipated. So overall, this was really one of the best trips I've ever taken. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So we close the door on another episode. And head home. Thanks for watching.
I'm going home. I'm going home. Been a long time now and I'm going home.
This is the Odd Man, out.